Part 13. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 121. Manor Center. Ta 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 ta. Several machine guns fiercely sprayed terrifying bullets. The piercing sound of gunfire made everyone in the manor have eardrums hurting. The second floor of a two-story villa in the center. In a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows, Sulin's father, Lieutenant General Crone, was standing side by side in front of the window with a bald old man with a big blue beard, quietly looking at the messy battlefield below the window. Both of them were wearing black general uniforms, standing tall and straight, with their hands behind their backs. Behind him stood two handsome and calm secretarial officers. "The situation is not good," Crone whispered, glancing at the big blue-bearded man next to him. "Deskin, maybe we have to do it ourselves. If you and I, as the director, still need to do it ourselves, then they have already failed in their duties." The blue-bearded Deskin remained calm. "Even if Ansara, one of the three most powerful killer organizations, dies because his skills are inferior to others, it can be regarded as saving money for the Federation. Are you so confident in your subordinates? I heard that after I left. How many new people did you recruit? It's not poaching, it's just recruiting. You also know that none of the people in our secret service were recruited by the country because of their excessive criminal records. Generally, no one who has the ability and has not committed any crime will come," Deskin explained. "This time the newcomer is a famous wanted criminal in the West Lucia Republic, just in time to see what his specific strength is. Ansaro is the leader of the entire Xi'an continent. The strongest killer organization has actually had contact with us many times. It can definitely be used as a touchstone." "That's true," Crone nodded, "but I'm still a little worried about my son and daughter. Although I arranged for someone to go there, whether it's too late is another matter." A trace of worry flashed across his face. "Ansara's speed is too fast. This is what they will have to face sooner or later. Children and grandchildren have their own experiences, and they cannot grow without going through hardships and setbacks. As parents, there is nothing to worry about." The bearded man pinched his beard and sighed. "Your children are all doing their best, but it's a pity that Kangyo is still here." There was a hint of sadness in his eyes. "It was an accident that time. Don't think about it so much. That's what our line of work is like." Crone quickly changed the subject. "By the way, the new ocean company recently claimed that it has successfully opened a sea route to the east. I don't know if it is true. Do you have any inside information?" "Well, the Blue House of Parliament has always been in charge of the new West Side. I am in the Red House and I can't intervene. However, I heard from Representative Tonarius that New West has indeed successfully opened up a relatively safe channel to Kule East. Tisk tisk. Oriental vases, spices, and works of art have always been the most expensive luxuries. Now that a stable channel has been opened, New Western Company has suddenly become a big fat piece of meat." Crone sighed. "If we can establish trade relations with that huge ancient empire across the sea, it will be of great help to the development of the Federation." "Don't think so much, let's deal with the immediate situation first," the bearded Deskin whispered, slowly turned around and walked towards the door. "Go and have a look." "Of course I'll accompany you." Crone smiled and followed. Pa. 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 In another dark yellow study room in the manor. Sulin sat on the black leather chair inside the desk and turned around, spinning a silver pistol in his hand. The barrel of this pistol was very long and thick, and its surface was as smooth as new, with a silvery sheen. The butt of the gun is made of wood, with a standing and roaring brown bear carved on it, and the letters KZ on the side. This gun is very powerful. Sulin couldn't put it down while playing with the pistol. The eight-armed dragon King Yoda sat on a wooden chair beside the desk, with his legs crossed and a long brass-mouthed pipe in his hand, puffing away at the smoke. "As long as you like it, this is my specially made enhanced version of the Lancer gunning pistol. The bullets used are new Dara bullets with inscriptions added. They are quite powerful among the special bullets powered by purple gunpowder. Purple gunpowder? It's amazing. You can even get such contraband, and you still have the nerve to say you live in seclusion. Sulin looked at the Dragon King with contempt. With purple gunpowder added, could this be the rumored witch-hunting bullet? You can say that. Anyway, as far as I know, the bullets used by the church when hunting witches were just like this. It was just different between then and now. Maybe there will be some changes after too long. He took a deep puff on his cigarette. He closed his eyes with enjoyment on his face. The effective range of this gun is 800 meters. You can use it according to your own estimation. Be careful when hitting people one-on-one and don't overlap. Otherwise, you will cry if you hit multiple people at once. 800 meters, the gun in Sulin's hand almost fell to the carpet. Do you think this is a sniper rifle? Nonsense. Some experts wear bulletproof suits and can't even be penetrated by sniper rifles. If I don't have any skills, how dare I call them the 8-armed Dragon King, Yoda said impatiently. Just be careful with the recoil. I already have an ominous premonition, Sulin murmured. The bullets are specially made and can only be fired 5 times. Don't waste it. This kind of gunpowder is hard to find. This is a powerful weapon against masters. Sulin weighed the heavy pistol, feeling a bit frightened. Bang! A red firework suddenly exploded in the sky beside the lake. A large number of federal soldiers in yellow military uniforms lay scattered on the river beach. The blood slowly flowed into the lake along with the corpses, and had dyed a large area of water red. The twins in green stood quietly on the river beach, with faint blood oozing from their arms, and their eyes were full of unwillingness. The man who called himself Salmon stood panting in front of the two of them, staring intently at the federal officer Colonel Muen not far away. Sure enough, it's you. Silver Snake Muen. You actually went to the Secret Service to become a minion of the Federal Department. I really didn't expect it. Colonel Muen's body was covered in scars, as if they had been cut by a sharp blade similar to a dagger, and most of his yellow military uniform had been dyed red. The battle was too fast, and the winner was decided in just 10 seconds. The two twins instantly took out 2 short guns, which were able to fire continuously like submachine guns, and each bullet was extremely accurate. Hundreds of elite soldiers were quickly harvested. But it was not without gain. Their arms were also pierced by bullets and they could no longer use firearms. As soon as Muen and Salmon fought, they burst out with their strongest strength at the same time, wanting to defeat each other in the shortest possible time. Unfortunately, the two were originally about the same strength, but they lost their concentration due to the defeat of other soldiers around them. They missed a move and were directly injured. I didn't expect it to be you either, Muen sneered. Black Feather Sword Saban, it's a pity that you all have to die here today. He had already heard the rapid footsteps, which were the guards coming to support the group. The place has been surrounded by guards again. It's a pity for me too. If you had joined Ansaluo, you wouldn't have died here. Salmon suddenly shrank his eyes and laughed. Muen was slightly startled and was about to say something. Suddenly he felt someone standing behind him. Then there was a pain in his chest, and he felt like he was flying sideways and falling heavily on the beach. How can it be? He didn't understand, and when his body was spinning in the air, he saw a figure in a black cloak standing behind him. He is a Secret Service colonel who can withstand firearms. To resist firearms, you rely on your strong and keen 5 senses. You can move your position before the enemy fires and pulls the trigger, and quickly deal with the opponent. With such powerful and sensitive 5 senses, he actually discovered his opponent only after he was close at hand. Boom! Muen's body fell heavily on the river beach, and a large amount of blood quickly filled his chest. His eyes were wide open, as if he was still looking forward to death. The man in black cloak stood there and slowly retracted his hand. Too slow, you guys. Salmon and the twins quickly lowered their heads and did not dare to say anything more. Soon, hurried footsteps approached quickly, and it turned out that they were not federal soldiers in yellow clothes, but groups of masked killers in green clothes. The team was led by two middle-aged men and women with different temperaments. They wore uniforms that were different from those of ordinary killers, but were also green. "Sir, we've solved it here," the middle-aged man said loudly after standing still. Then he glanced at Salmon and the other three in confusion. "Salmon, why are you in such a mess?" "I met the silver snake from before," Salmon replied helplessly, pointing to the corpse not far away. "He is now a colonel of the Federal Secret Service. If you hadn't arrived in time, we would have been in trouble." While the few people were talking, the Black Cloak was already striding towards the small stone house. Only half a minute passed between when the killer attacked and when Muen died in battle and the Black Cloak appeared. Everyone moved quickly, and it didn't take much time at all. Inside the stone house, Arisai sat quietly on the recliner, her eyes scanning the patterns on the wall from time to time. Just as he sat down, gunshots were heard outside. She was hesitating whether to wait for the colonel to return and leave together, or to leave immediately by herself. Once the secret passage is opened and closed once, it will be automatically locked. This is designed to prevent enemy pursuit. In just half a minute, the gunfire outside stopped. Irasi knew that there were hundreds of soldiers ambushed outside. Although he could vaguely hear screams, the only guess that it could end so quickly was that the enemy had been annihilated. With Colonel Muen and hundreds of soldiers, even Ansara wouldn't dare to confront him head-on with such a force, right? She glanced at Garin next to her. He poured out another cup of scented tea and drank it slowly. "What? The exercise is over?" Garin asked in a low voice. "Not that fast." Irasi smiled and opened his mouth to explain the truth clearly. Suddenly, the door of the stone house was slowly opened. A figure in a black cloak stood quietly at the door. Arisai's pupils shrank instantly, and her whole body felt cold. Before she had time to think about it, she stepped on it with her right foot. A cabinet behind him suddenly popped open, revealing the entrance to the dark underground passage below. "Let's go," Irasi shouted urgently, jumping back into the underground tunnel entrance. But there was no sound of Garin following behind. "Sorry, this way is blocked." She heard Garin's calm voice behind her. Garin slowly stood up and faced the open door, blocking the closing underground passage. "As expected, it's you." "Heavenly General Galen," another person whispered. Arisai's eyes were startled. "Brother Galen." It only took her a moment to understand her brother Sulin's intention. The person slowly lifted up his cloak, revealing a face with pink eyes. "Let me see, who is the real overlord between the generals of heaven and generals of kings?" Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 122. Boom. In the manor, a man in a black cloak suddenly stopped. A few meters in front of him, a large amount of flame residue from the explosion flew in all directions. The bright yellow firelight suddenly removed the shadow under his cloak, revealing a beautiful and indifferent face of a woman. Not far in front of him, all the green-clad killers more than 10 meters away were blown to pieces and shocked to death. A few luckier guys only had their hands and feet blown off, and were struggling to crawl on the ground to keep themselves away from the fire. The third king will be Charlotte. In a hidden window not far away, the 8-armed dragon king stared at the cloaked woman and whispered. "I didn't expect Ansara to use such a large force. What happened to your father that made them attack with all their strength regardless of the cost?" He looked back at Sulin, who was standing behind. "I don't know. It's not like killing his wife and seizing his son." Sulin shrugged. "Forget it, the ambush bomb will probably have no effect. This guy's intuition is too sharp. You leave first, I will do it myself." The 8-armed dragon king Yoda bit his pipe and began to take off the sniper rifles one by one to check and reload. "Are you okay? Alone?" there is a special agent colonel protecting you outside here. You won't come in so quickly, right? Sulin said casually. I'm afraid she won't have to come in, the eight-armed Dragon King whispered. Sulin walked over and looked outside, and happened to see the third king, Charlotte, slowly taking out two black cylinders from under his cloak, and then putting them together to form a weird black gun with a barrel as thick as a fist. What is that? A deadly thing. The eight-armed Dragon King set up a heavy sniper like lightning and aimed at Charlotte with a single shot. Boom! The black cloak in the field of vision suddenly exploded to pieces, and the entire upper body was completely shattered into pieces of flesh. Only the lower body still walked 2 steps on the ground before falling down. Is this the end? Sulin was stunned. It's still early, the eight-armed Dragon King sneered. Let's go. She has already discovered this place. That one is a substitute. He pulled Sulin and turned around to leave. Run in from an underground entrance in the right corner of the room, and the entrance quickly closes. Bang! The door was kicked open suddenly, and a man in a black cloak walked in carrying a school-level officer. Scan the room from side to side. His eyes fell directly on the closed tunnel door in the corner. Boom! There was another loud noise, and a large amount of flames exploded instantly, pouring out from the closet, desk, floor, and ceiling. Explosive flames were sprayed out from all directions at the same time. The whole room instantly turned into a sea of fire. In the corridor beside the door of the room, a man in black cloak leaned against the wall with his arms folded. He looked at the room where flames were spraying out and hit the door panel, then turned around and left quietly. In the tunnel. Hey, you didn't let me go alone, do you want to stay? Why are you running with me too? Sulin looked at Dragon King Yoda, who was running ahead speechlessly. Of course he is running so fast to support other places, Yoda said with a smile. If I predict correctly, that guy has already entered my ultimate trap. Even she would not dare to act rashly after killing 2 substitutes. Boom! The dull explosion sounded from behind again. The whole ground shook violently. Look! She's finished, Yoda said with a bright smile on his face. In the corridor. The black cloak stood quietly, motionless. The door of the room that was blown away was burning not far behind her, making crackling sounds of wood exploding from time to time. A slight drop of sweat appeared on Charlotte's face. Her beautiful eyes were constantly scanning the surroundings where she was standing. This arrangement only has you, Yoda, she murmured. His body didn't dare to move at all. She knew that if she moved just a little bit more, the bombs planted around her would explode instantly. He doesn't know how these bombs work. Are they touch sensitive? Timing? Or induction? Organ? But she knew that if she took another step now, whether forward or backward, a bomb would be triggered instantly. No one dares to despise the bombs of the eight-armed Dragon King Yoda. She stared carefully with her eyes, and suddenly found that the surroundings of her body were filled with straight transparent silk threads. The silk threads were stretched tightly and straight, like steel wires, densely packed, like silkworms spinning silk, tightly surrounding her from top to bottom, left and right. She understood that as long as any thread was touched, a violent series of explosions would occur. Countless filaments directly formed a human-shaped space, which was exactly where she stood. This is the only position that can avoid the moving thread. Snapped. A drop of sweat fell to the ground. Unfortunately, you underestimate me too much. A hint of pride slowly appeared on her beautiful face. Boom. 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 4 sniper rifles fired in all directions at the same time. Yoda has 2 handles in his hands and 2 handles on his feet. His feet are naked, and his toes are as flexible as fingers. He can control the focus and adjust the position and direction at will. Each shot fired by the 4 sniper rifles will accurately harvest 4 lives. Sulin stood behind him, and beside him was a young man wearing a school-level military uniform. He was the person responsible for protecting Sulin. The one who died earlier was just a fake. The two of them stared at the performance of the eight-armed Dragon King in stunned silence. The three of them were standing on the top floor of a three-story building. Bang bang bang. Amidst the violent gunfire, Yoda roared loudly and excitedly. Ha ha. Go to hell. Die. A faint green smoke filled the air around him, giving people a sense of crazy bloodthirsty. Suddenly Yoda rolled over and rolled away. A black dot fell with a hiss from the sky. Laugh. A black javelin was nailed to his original position. The silver-white spear tip pierced the concrete floor hard. I knew I couldn't stop you, Charlotte. Yoda stood up and said calmly towards the edge of the roof. Snapped. A black flying claw suddenly appeared on the edge of the roof, and then a person jumped up in the air. Black cloak, head uncovered, revealing a beautiful and indifferent white face. One of her eyes had a white eye patch, and she was retracting the black flying claws in her hand with a hiss. Yoda, I haven't seen you for many years, but you are still so insidious. Unfortunately, I have entered your 20-meter range. Should you just let it go, or should I kill you with my own hands? Hasn't sinister always been synonymous with you? Yoda sneered. You are the one who was captured without mercy. His hands shook. Click, click, click. There was a loud roar in the whole place. The 8 heavy snipers on his body were divided into 2 arcs at the same time, and the densely packed barrels were all aimed at Charlotte. Do you know why I can be called the Dragon King? He chuckled. That's because no one can defeat me when I have 8 guns in hand. Therefore, my nickname is 8-Armed Dragon King. Charlotte's whole body froze and she stood motionless. Her concentration was at its peak. The 8 guns aimed at her all contained absolutely powerful special gunpowder bullets, with an astonishing rate of fire. She originally thought Yoda's nickname was just an exaggeration, but she didn't expect it to be like this. She noticed that the way Yoda controlled the 8 heavy snipers was exactly that kind of transparent and tough special silk thread. Let me see how much strength the original King General has left. Yoda snorted coldly, and the 2 muzzles of the gun instantly merged and fired at the same time. Bang! Garen and one of the 4 King Generals suddenly separated, and each took a few steps back. There were also pieces of clothing and dust scattered in the air from the collision between the 2 people. In the stone house, Garen finally heard the sound of the passage closing behind him, and a smile appeared on his face. Without thinking much, he instantly hit the left side, splashing gravel. With a bang he broke through the wall and fell into the water. Boom! The stone house exploded instantly and was enveloped in flames, which illuminated the surrounding lake in bright red. As soon as Garen stepped out of the lake and onto the shore, a black shadow suddenly rushed towards him. Double star. 2 dots of blue light lit up from the black shadow and floated towards Garen's chest. It was the glimmer of sunlight reflected from the tip of the dagger. The pink-eyed King General had a ferocious smile on his face. His arms were actually prosthetic limbs. 2 curved arc daggers popped out from below. Looking at the blades, you could tell that this was definitely not a dagger made of any material. 2 cold stars pierced Garen's chest hard. Boom! Garen raised his upper body, and the dagger was bounced away. Sand. The pink-eyed king raised his hand and sprinkled a cloud of fine gray sand, completely covering Garen in it. Then he took a few steps back and did a somersault. Bang 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 bang. Countless firearms and bullets were aimed at Garen and fired wildly. Those grey fine sands turned out to be large pieces of gunpowder, which were suddenly ignited, and the red flames that broke out instantly completely enveloped Galleon. The strafing lasted several seconds before ending. The place where Garen stood was filled with smoke, making it almost impossible to see anything. Stop playing these silly tricks. Suddenly, Garen's voice slowly came out from the smoke, calm and indifferent. The pink-eyed king narrowed his eyes slightly, staring at Garen coming out of the smoke. This strong man's body was like fine steel, slightly showing a bluish-black color, and his body seemed to be larger than before. He slowly walked out of the smoke, his upper body completely naked except for the clothes on his lower body. There wasn't even the slightest scratch on it. "What a powerful hard Qigong," Wang Zhang said in a deep voice. "It seems that ordinary firearms are ineffective against you. It's a pity that Charlotte is not here." "Charlotte?" Another general, Garen asked doubtfully. Boom. Another bullet hit his right eye hard. The moment the bullet was fired, Garen closed his eyes and his eyelids bounced away from the bullet with a clang. "Nasty little bugs." He raised his right hand. A green-clad killer not far away covered his throat in horror, with a bloody hole directly punched through his neck. The whole place was silent, and the bullet couldn't even penetrate the eyelid. This kind of terrifying hard Qigong has reached the limit of human beings, right? Wang Jiang's face twitched and he took a step back unconsciously. Garen looked around. "There are too many bugs. Let's clean up the battlefield first." Before he finished speaking, King Pink Eyes suddenly felt a terrifying and powerful aura expand instantly. His face turned pale, and a terrifying possibility flashed through his mind. "Lu Yi! Run away!" he suddenly shouted with all his strength. Boom! A circle of terrifying aura instantly overwhelmed him completely. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 123. In The Green Killer, when the two twin girls heard the shouting, they suddenly jumped over and quickly disappeared into the woods. They seemed to be pulled by something from behind and flew into the woods. There was a slender figure standing in the woods, which seemed to be a woman. Only then did the twin girls react and stared blankly at the terrifying aura on the river beach. The pink-eyed king will be standing among them, and a large group of green-clad killers are also wrapped in it. Looking from a distance, the air around Garen seemed to be distorted, and something seemed to be howling underground, making terrifying vibrations. His eyes seemed to be glowing with blood, which was an ominous omen. The twins' bodies began to tremble slightly, and a fear welled up from deep in their hearts and wanted to occupy their entire bodies crazily. How could such an enemy win? Bang bang bang. Submachine guns, pistols, and bullets kept splashing bright sparks on that terrifying and strong figure, but they had no effect at all. As soon as several grenades were taken out, they were thrown into the fine sand by Galen in the killer's hands and detonated. Flesh and blood flew everywhere for a while. Even Saman could only resist the suppression of chi in embarrassment, and only dared to shoot with firearms from a distance. Only the king. He was rushing towards the opponent crazily, with a faint aura of energy tightening around his body to protect himself from being affected. The twins' bodies began to tremble more and more violently. Don't look. This is illusory mental pressure. It only affects the spirit, don't look directly at him. A pair of slender white palms covered the eyes of the two girls at the same time. Bang! 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 Garen stood quietly, looking at the pink-eyed general who was ejected again and again with pity. On the ground and on the river beach, the opponent's blood was scattered everywhere. Those were serious injuries caused by the terrifying countershock from the mutated giant elephant Mai Wu. Time flies, and years are gone. Garen stood there, quietly looking at the pink-eyed general who was struggling to get up from the ground. Is this your courage? He watched as the opponent's side tightened, only enough to hold on to his own area. Continuous bullets and gunfire sounded, and golden sparks flew wildly from Garen's body. But nothing can stop him. He walked towards the king step by step, leaving clear footprints on the ground. Until you stand in front of the other person. Perhaps I am too naive. Time is ruthless. No matter how strong the strong man is, he will eventually become weak as time flies by. In fact, he also knows that it is his improvement after becoming a fighter that has completely consolidated his strength, and his courage has become stronger. In other words, he became stronger. Huh. Huh. The pink-eyed king was breathing heavily. My strength is indeed only half of what it was in its heyday. If I still had my hands, I would beat you until you don't even recognize your mother, he cursed fiercely. Is it only twice what it is now? A trace of disappointment flashed in Garen's eyes. Ah! Suddenly, a green figure suddenly appeared behind Garen. He aimed a military thorn at Garen's left ear and stabbed it hard into Garen's left ear. Moo! A terrifying elephant roar sounded loudly in their ears. Garen's body unexpectedly expanded ferociously again, reaching a height of almost 2.5 meters. The muscles all over his body were tangled like steel bars. A huge amount of terrifying energy gathered around him, forming a white elephant roaring up to the sky in the eyes of everyone. The black military thorn instantly stopped in front of Garen's left ear. The tips of the thorns trembled. Black Feather Saber Saman's whole body was trembling violently. Tears and snot flowed down involuntarily on his face, but he didn't dare to wipe them away. The hands holding the military thorn were working crazily, trying to thrust it forward. But the military thorn seemed to be frozen and did not move at all. Move, Salman finally screamed crazily. He seemed to recall a similar experience he had had before, and tears fell down incessantly. Laugh. The military thorn finally penetrated. Garen was slightly stunned, and the kings on the ground were equally stunned. In the woods not far away, the slender woman was equally astonished. The remaining killers on the field were also stunned at the same time. 1. Snapped. The military thorn fell to the ground weakly. Everyone's heart sank at the same time. Garen's face was expressionless, and there was no blood flowing out of his ear holes. Unfortunately. Injective shape. Laugh. Garen's arm penetrated Salman's chest directly and came out from behind. Morning light. At this moment, the pink-eyed king pounced forward ferociously, with the sound of an eagle neighing faintly heard from his body. The dagger in both hands stabbed the soft flesh of Garen's chin from bottom to top. This thrust used all the strength of the king's body, and he took advantage of the moment when Garen was distracted. This move is the strongest stunt of Zinglunfist that he is good at. This thrust contains 3 different forces, and the force is released at different times. Will eventually all be superimposed on the tip of the dagger. A blow that becomes 3 times more powerful. It's not so much that he stabs the dagger, but that he shoots the dagger with both hands, and then uses his skills to accelerate the second and third times on the dagger. The king put his palms together, and the dagger flew upwards from the middle, stabbing Garen's chin. Suddenly, the end of the dagger spurted out blue-purple flames, and the last step accelerated the dagger again. This is the 4th acceleration. This thorn was like a silver-blue vertical line, flashing across Garen's body. There was only a faint after-image left, as if the galleons were being cut in half. Die. At this moment, the king seemed to feel the power he had when he was at his strongest. This blow had reached the level of his whole body. But the price is that there is no resistance after one blow. As long as I can kill this guy, everything is easy to talk about. Seeing that the tip of the knife had pierced the skin of Garen's chin, a hint of expectation flashed in his eyes. Clang. The expectation on Wang Jiang's face instantly turned into despair. Garen looked down at him from a high position, his right hand just in front of the thorn tip, firmly blocking the blow. If you had used this attack in your heyday, I might have been seriously injured. It's a pity. The king opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but nothing came out. He squatted on the spot quietly, his eyes, ears, nostrils, and mouth all began to slowly ooze blood. The strong backlash caused him to lose his vitality instantly. Is this move called Chen 11? With just this move, he is worthy of being a king of the previous generation. Garen stretched out his index finger and gently pushed the opponent's forehead. Puff. The king fell to the ground, no longer breathing. This blow was so fierce that even Garen had to block it with his hands. Even the mutated giant elephant Maiwul has areas of strong and weak hardness. So he had to use his hand. Spreading his right hand, Garen could clearly see the blood slowly dripping from his palm. He was finally hurt. According to Sulin's information, this king general is over 50 years old, but he can still have such great strength and maintain a middle-aged appearance. It can also cause slight damage to Garen at this time. For this alone, he is indeed worthy of the title of his previous generation. He raised his hand casually, and another handful of pebbles flew out, and a large number of the green-clothed killers fell down in an instant. Under the suppression and fear of Chi, these killers were like tiny ants to Garen. After killing everyone, Garen slowly released the third stage state and returned to his original size. Glancing into the woods, I saw that the people there had fled without leaving any traces. He walked back to King Pink Eyes, squatted down and groped around on his body. Wallet, hard to identify authentic documents, some white tissues, and a few black metal cards. Then there is a small notebook like a notebook. He hurriedly put the things together and flipped through the small book. It was full of notes and experiences on practicing martial arts. There was still a fierce battle at the manor, and before he could take a closer look, Garen put it in his trouser pocket. His pants were specially made by Sulin, and with the special protection just now, there was no streaking. You can even carry things in your trouser pockets. After putting his things in his pocket, Garen casually picked up a submachine gun and ran quickly towards the manor buildings. There are still gunshots and explosions over there, and the battle between the Federal Army and the killer group is getting more intense. I don't know what the situation is now. We must find Sulin and the others as soon as possible. Bang! Yoda aimed 3 guns at the third King General Charlotte flying in mid-air at the same time, and fired suddenly. The 3 bullets each covered part of the body's hiding area. But when Charlotte's weird body twisted, her whole body twisted and dodged like a mollusk. Then he landed on a fence on the roof of the building and stood firm. Charlotte was in a state of embarrassment. The black cloak she was wearing had long been thrown away. The red tight-fitting leather armor she was wearing seemed to be a special bulletproof vest. It was well protected against being hit by bullets several times and did not cause any damage to her. Not bad, 8-armed dragon, King Yoda said with a half-smile, while actually smoking a pipe. The left hand once again began to load bullets leisurely. He had 8 guns, and he fired several in turn, forcing Charlotte to run exhausted and unable to get close. His greatest strength is to aim 8 guns at the same time, but such an explosion cannot last long, and there will be a period of absolute weakness after that. This is what Charlotte is afraid of, and she also uses thermal weapons, but Yoda always seems to be relaxed, but is actually vigilant, and can't find the right time to strike. Her gun is different from Yoda's. If it doesn't come out, it will definitely kill the enemy. The two were in a stalemate for a while. Sulin, who was hiding behind the door at the stairwell, secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He invited Garen and Dragon King over, originally to hold off the opponent's masters as much as possible, while his father and the others could handle the rest. As a result, only Anceloto and the other King General were greatly weakened. As long as Garen can hold back one of the opponent's generals, then he is sure of victory, Sulin secretly estimated in his mind. Ansara is different from other killer organizations. They have their own unique pride. Although killing is called assassination, they actually kill each other face to face to promote their terrifying strength of combining martial arts and firearms. This group of people, headed by Ansara, believes that martial arts combined with firearms and hot weapons is the only way for martial arts to not continue to decline. Moreover, this should be the only path that the older generation of martial artists should choose as their physical fitness declines. So they want proof. It proves that traditional martial arts will not be eliminated by the times. Yoda and Charlotte kept changing positions, constantly looking for the best opportunities. The two of them seemed to be drawing circles on the roof, spinning around each other. The sound of Yoda's gunfire became less and less, replaced by the silent rapid movement of the barrel. Like Charlotte, the two seemed to have begun a silent game and competition. People of the same generation, they were all absolutely powerful top players of that era. There was no direct confrontation at the beginning, but now there is an opportunity to decide life and death head-on. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 124. Boom. This time it was Charlotte who fired the shot. A ball of sparks opened a small crater on the ground next to Yoda, and a large amount of rubble exploded, forcing Yoda to turn over and avoid the rubble. Charlotte was holding a purple-red pistol in her hand, but it was one size larger than an ordinary pistol, and there was a trace of smoke coming out of the muzzle. Missing a shot, she instantly retracted her pistol and left her original position in a flash. There were 2 gunshots, and 2 small craters suddenly appeared where she had just left. Sweat slowly dripped from Yoda's forehead, but he did not dare to wipe it away. He knew some information about Charlotte, one of the former 4 kings, whose greatest characteristics were her strong intuition and agility. Her flexible, boneless body can perform many incredible attacks and evasive moves. But that's not the most troublesome part. The most troublesome thing is Charlotte's secret weapon, the 10-finger flying needle. This is a hidden weapon technique that uses fine needles as hidden weapons, and a layer of complex toxins are applied on the needles in an ingenious way. As long as it is scratched a little, it will definitely lead to death from the poison, and even Charlotte herself has no antidote. Moreover, this kind of flying needle has a special structure and makes no sound after being shot. It seems that we are really in trouble this time, Yoda murmured in a low voice, tightening the thread on his hand, and the muzzles of the 8 sniper rifles moved slightly. At the same time, there was a slight clicking sound, as if something was being adjusted. This is the true secret that Dragon King Yoda has never revealed, the true secret that no living person has ever been able to see. But now he wasn't going to hide it anymore. At the same time, Charlotte, who was on the edge of the roof, suddenly felt a numbness in her scalp. Without any time to think, she leaned back and fell directly downstairs. Bang! Garen stopped immediately and looked far away in the direction of the sound coming from inside the manor. The gunfire over the manor has gradually become sparse, and it is obvious that the fierce battle has almost come to an end. The dull sound of gunfire this time was completely different from before, giving people a strange dull feeling. Garen glanced around, and saw that the ground was full of craters and bloodstains, the bodies of soldiers and killers were scattered in all directions, and some buildings were already burning. The fire burned the wood inside, making constant crackling sounds. The entire manor, which had a beautiful environment, completely turned into a dead zone. The air was filled with the smell of gunpowder and blood. Garen stepped over the 2 corpses that were fighting to death and frowned slightly. Even though he had been fighting for a long time and his hands were stained with blood, he still felt a faint sense of unreality when he saw this tragic small battlefield. In his previous life, he was just an ordinary young man and an office worker. After arriving in this world, he began to pursue martial arts, but he unknowingly reached this point. He is a powerful fighter born from his natural talents, and he is already at the pinnacle of martial arts in this world. From an ordinary person to a fighter who can kill no more than a raise of his hands, this huge span was something he never expected at first. Walking in the increasingly quiet manner, there were only occasional gunshots in the distance. Garen suddenly saw a corpse whose waist was shot by a machine gun. This was a young male soldier. His eyes were open, as if he hadn't yet figured out what was going on. This machine gun is a position-type heavy machine gun. Garen glanced at the crater on the ground and made a rough estimate. If 5 heavy machine guns hit me in the same direction, the impact will probably be able to block my progress. This is the power of thermal weapons. He sighed and ran quickly towards the lawn in the center of the manor. That was the agreed final gathering place, and Arisai, Dragon King Sulin and others would all go here to gather. Because the most powerful forces such as the director of the Secret Service and Sulin's father are concentrated here. Not long after running, I picked up a few green killers who were still alive on the road. Soon we arrived at the central lawn. A large area of the lawn looked like it had been shoveled away by a shovel. The green grass was completely turned into black mud, and the ground was full of traces of explosion residue. Garen walked to the edge of the plowed turf, squatted down and turned over it. What a fierce fight! He murmured quietly. A master from the previous generation who is at least 50 or 60 years old can still have such a powerful explosive power. He is also a fighter himself, so he can naturally see some traces of fighting from these remaining traces compared to the king general just now. He is completely different. Snapped. Suddenly there was the sound of something slapping in the distance. Garen didn't hesitate, got up and rushed in that direction. There was a lonely little church with a silver cross on top of its white spire. The main door of the church opened with a bang. Garen suddenly stopped and his expression changed. The vaulted hall of the church was in a state of disarray. Sulin's father, Lieutenant General Crone, and another bearded bald man were half lying in the corners on both sides. The two men were covered in blood, and the ground was littered with human body parts and internal organs. The red carpet became increasingly bloody and dark red. In addition to Crone, there were also Irisi and several guards with fearful expressions on their faces. They were protecting the two generals. Their hands were trembling slightly as they held the guns. His eyes were fixed on a figure in a black cloak squatting half-crouched in the center of the red carpet. Is someone coming again? The black cloak stood up, his voice hoarse. A few drops of blood slowly dripped from the edge of the black leather boots under his feet, and he was obviously injured. Garen narrowed his eyes and was about to speak when suddenly a wall not far from the church suddenly opened up on the ground and three people came out. It was Sulin, Dragon King Yoda and the Colonel. Ansara, as soon as Dragon King Yoda came out, he saw the black cloak standing in the center. Then he looked at the situation around him, and his expression suddenly changed. Yoda, long time no see. Ansara looked at the Dragon King, without any fluctuation in his voice. It's a pity that you finally stood opposite me. You should have killed me after all these years. The Dragon King calmed his expression and replied coldly. Too bad you didn't. Where's Charlotte? Ansara suddenly asked. I was injured and ran away. I won't come to support you again in a short time. Yoda pulled his hand, and 8 heavy snipers instantly formed a fan shape, aiming at Ansara's body and all surrounding areas. At this point in the fight, the outcome has actually been decided. Ansara looked away and landed on Lieutenant General Crone, who was leaning against the wall. Hand it over, Lieutenant General Crone. I didn't expect that your spear skills are as terrifying as your martial arts. You are worthy of being the leader of the strongest killer organization. Crone sneered. You can take the things, but not here. In another place farther away. My martial arts has reached the point where there is no increase or decrease. Ansara said calmly, there are no martial artists in the world who can beat me. Even Palasha has only stopped at my level. He said calmly, with a domineering tone in his voice. I have reached the realm of transcendence and sainthood, but unfortunately, I still cannot resist the erosion of time. He raised his head high and finally lifted the black cloak covering his head. This is a thin old man with a white beard. His hair is completely white, his eyebrows are also white, and the weirdest thing is that his eyes are also white. The skin on his face was as wrinkled as the bark of an old tree. It was obvious that he had lost his age, and he was at least 70 or 80 years old. The golden sword seat, the key that can unlock a higher level of martial arts in the legend, is my only hope now. Ansara looked at Crone calmly. I am nearly 80 years old. I no longer have time to find myself. Path of. Why are you talking so much? Garen interrupted him directly and took a step forward. Winning or losing, let's talk about it later. Before he finished speaking, he rushed over quickly and stomped on the ground with a stamp. The whole church roared, and the huge sound seemed to collapse the church in an instant. Everyone's eardrums roared, and there was a fine buzzing sound, which was caused by temporary deafness. Then he saw Garen rushing forward with a lunge, and the sound of wind carried by him faintly sounded like the roar of an elephant. The handle slashed down from top to bottom, and the faint sound of an elephant shaking its trunk could be heard in the air. As soon as he entered Galen, he felt an upright and powerful invisible aura faintly suppressing the entire church. On this Anchalugo, there was a phantom of a male lion slowly crouching. It is a spiritual shadow created by powerful aura. When Anchalugo does not burst out, ordinary martial artists cannot see the situation. But as soon as Garen entered the door, he felt that this man's spirit was almost the same as his own, and he could still maintain such a strong physique when he was nearly 80 years old. This spirit is much stronger than Andrala's, and can already be compared with him now. Junior. Do you think you can take advantage of my injury? Ansara sneered and turned around. The newly entered fighter level is trying to challenge the seniors. They don't know whether to live or die. He put his hands lightly and landed on the side of Garen's sword. Give it a tap. Snapped. Garen looked shocked. The sword in his hand contained most of his strength, but it was deflected by the other party with just a tap. Bang! A crater appeared in front of Ansara's toes, but he easily dodged it by a hair's breadth. The nearly 80-year-old man stretched out his palm. The speed was neither fast nor slow, but it was impossible to avoid. He swung away the shot of Garen's other hand and patted him lightly on the chest. Lock, he shouted. Garen's body felt as if struck by thunder, and he instantly froze on the spot. He felt as if his chest suddenly became stiff and completely uncontrollable, as if his flesh and blood body suddenly turned into a cold and hard stone. Young man, martial arts cannot be won by strength alone. Ansara took a step back, his face calm. I'll tell you after you win. Garen laughed ferociously, and his body suddenly expanded, growing from 1.7 meters to 1.9 meters in an instant. Shoot. Tread. Dump. 3 shapes in one. Garen shot out with his right elbow and stepped on it. The whole ground shook slightly again. The elbow actually transformed into an arc in the middle, and suddenly changed from a shooting shape to a throwing shape. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 125. This elbow strike combines the explosive power of the shooting form and the stepping form, plus the huge attack range and rotational force of the throwing form. The power was so strong that Garen struck with all his strength. Even an armored tank would be smashed in an instant. The strong wind blew on Ansara's beard slightly, but his expression remained unchanged. He stretched out his palms again, seemingly slowly but actually very quickly, under Garen's elbow. Bang bang. 2 crisp sounds. It seemed like the knuckles of his fingers flicked twice under Garen's elbow. The originally violent and powerful elbow strike was instantly lifted up, deviated from its original trajectory, and passed over Ansara's head. Boom. Another slap hit Garen on the chest. Garen took 2 steps back, looking strange. He looked at Ansara's techniques and suddenly remembered the countless special schools on Earth in his previous life. Are you doing soft fisting? Soft fist? You can say that. Ansara nodded lightly. This word sums it up well. Being able to step into the ranks of fighters at such a young age must not be an accident. He stood with his hands behind his back. This is my self-created spirit ring fist. It is most suitable for dealing with hard Qigong masters like you who only know brute force. Garen reached out and touched his chest. The stiffness he had just used to expand his body using explosive hard Qigong and relieve it now reappeared. His chest felt cold and hard, and he seemed to have lost consciousness again. It seems I can't deal with you without using my real skills. Garen took a deep breath and his body suddenly shook. It actually expanded again. It jumped from 1.9 meters to 2.45 meters. He was 2 heads taller than Ansara, and the two stood face to face, as distinct as adults and children. The peak of Hard Kagong and Shaloto's expression changed slightly. Before he could finish his words, he saw Garen's hand grabbing at him fiercely. Like a cattail leaf fan pressing down on the top, it almost blocks the light in the entire sky. He quickly raised his hand. Bang! This muffled sound made everyone in the church feel dizzy. Celine stood with her sister and father, and everyone gathered together, protected by soldiers, colonels, and several officers. At this time, everyone was dumbfounded when they saw Garen suddenly grow into twice its original size in a terrifying manner. So strong, Iris covered her mouth and shouted softly. She had no idea that Garen, who originally looked just a little stronger, would suddenly grow into such a terrifying figure. He grabbed the skinny old man like an eagle catching a chicken. This visual contrast is too strong. I could already picture Garen slapping the old man to pieces with his palm. The peak of Hard Kagong, Crone and his old partner Big Beard exchanged glances, and both saw a hint of shock in the other's eyes. They had also learned some traditional martial arts, but they had no idea that there was such a terrifying effect of Hard Kagong in martial arts. Just looking at that figure, you can imagine how powerful Garen's palm is at this moment. It seems that traditional martial arts have been underestimated before. In close combat, this kind of martial arts is as effective as top spear skills, a thought flashed in Crone's mind. Celine stayed beside his sister and felt a strong shock when he saw this scene. Although he had heard the rumors about Garen, he was not as shocked as seeing it with his own eyes. But this was not the key to keeping him stunned. The key is that Anceloto actually blocked this palm with both hands raised. After a huge muffled sound, Ansara's feet sank into the concrete floor, almost to his knees. Moo! Roar! The sounds of elephants and lions roared together, and the ferocious roar vibrated. As a warrior, Celine could naturally clearly see that Garen and Anceloto were competing with each other, and their auras were like a giant elephant and a giant lion that were entangled and colliding fiercely. With a snap, the two immediately separated. Ansara stood up and jumped backwards for a few steps to stabilize himself. When he looked at Garen again, he looked a little surprised. What kind of Hard Kagong are you doing? I have seen all the top Hard Kagongs, except yours. Bayun Gate, Giant Elephant's secret martial arts. Garen also felt uncomfortable. Just when he hit the opponent's arms, the terrifying repulsive force that instantly caused the opponent to burst out made him feel a little weak now. Feeling of fatigue. Fighters and top boxing masters all possess the necessary abilities for close combat and counterattack. It was obvious that the opponent's counterattack was much higher than his. Clang! Suddenly a bell rang outside the church. Ansara's face darkened. Bring the things. Otherwise, you will die. He suddenly looked at Crone who was guarding him. The terrifying aura in his body swelled up instantly, surpassing Galleon's in an instant and pressing hard on everyone in Crone. Crone's face was gloomy, and he glanced at the whole place and could tell that the situation was not good. Without any hesitation, he directly named a place. Ansara, with your martial arts, there is no need to fight life and death every day. Why not join our secret service? The Federation will soon reorganize special experts. By then, I will be the first minister of the Secret Service. If you join, I can promise you to become deputy minister. Ansara looked at him disdainfully, like a tiger looking at a pig. Then he ignored the furious Crone. Time is running out, it seems we must fight quickly. His eyes fell on Garen blocking the door, and there was another Yoda aura hidden in the dark. Yoda had been waiting for the opportunity, holding the gun but not firing it, which gave him a stronger containment and threat than actually shooting. I didn't expect to meet the rumored pinnacle of hard Qigong here. It's a pity that I don't have time, and Shailuo looked at Garen, with a flash of appreciation in his eyes. Get out of the way, young man, I don't want to kill you. Garen now felt the feeling of the pink-eyed general just now. The opponent's aura was like an ocean, waves surrounding his own aura. He could only tighten around his body, gather his energy, and always pay attention to Ansara's every move. It feels like a flying insect stuck in a spider web. He already felt something was wrong. The giant elephant secret martial arts is a top-notch hard Qigong that has been mutated into a top-notch hard Qigong after one level of skin hardening, one level of stabilization of chi and blood, and superposition and strengthening. Now the opponent doesn't even notice it. You are worthy of being a top martial artist of the older generation. But let me get out of the way, your skills are not enough. He originally wanted to see what higher level martial arts was. Now that it's in front of us, we naturally refuse to escape. Besides, he heard that Ansara was also related to the Immortal Palace, so there was no way he would give up this opportunity. Ansara narrowed his eyes. A hint of danger slowly spread from his body. Clang! Another bell rang outside. And Shailuo's face was shocked, and at this moment, a thunderous gunshot rang out. It's Yoda. 8 sniper rifles fired at the same time, locking in any direction Shailuo could avoid. Shailuo suddenly dwarfed, his whole body doubled in size, and turned into a dwarf. With a muffled groan, he was obviously injured. Looking for death, with a roar, Shailuo raised his hand, and actually fired a purple pistol in his hand instantly. Bang! Yoda, who was in the darkness in the distance, groaned in pain, and a large bloody hole was left in his right shoulder. At this moment, Garen stepped down and spun his arms. A series of swings. First Dragon Gate. At the same time, Ansara let out a low roar, and his whole body actually expanded several times. With a fierce look on his face, he pointed a finger and stabbed Garen's swinging arm. He actually wanted to fight head-on. At this moment there was another gunshot. Yoda struggled and actually fired again. Ansara had no time to react, and at the moment when he was fighting with Garen, he couldn't dodge in time. In the blink of an eye, his body expanded twice again. He actually turned into a strong man with muscles all over his body. Only slightly smaller than Jia Lung, he is also at the pinnacle of hard Qigong. Bang! Garen only felt a pain in his arm, and then he saw Ansara, with murderous intent on his face, sneaking in and lightly pressing his palm on his chest. The last shot just now had no effect on him. Second Dragon Gate. Boom! Ansara hit Garen on the chest with a palm, then spun around and went behind Garen. Third Dragon Gate. A backhand palm, bang! Hit Galleon's heart right in the heart. The 3 palms seemed dull, but the continuous blows on Garen's body did not cause any movement. It was just that outsiders couldn't see it, but Garen felt as if his whole body was frozen by something, and he couldn't move at all. The blood and chi in his blood vessel seemed to be blocked by something, making it extremely difficult to flow. My heart was beating violently, and every time it beat, my whole body seemed to be vibrating. I had intense shortness of breath, palpitations, and waves of dizziness in my head. A large number of negative states came to me at once. My heart felt like it was about to explode. He staggered and almost lost his balance. The last palm. The fourth Dragon Gate, Ansara raised his cold right palm and struck it hard on Garen's forehead. However, Garen stumbled and dodged awkwardly. Boom! There was another gunshot. Ansara's expression changed slightly, he immediately retracted his hand and took a step forward. A large amount of cement slag suddenly spattered from the ground behind him, and he slapped it with one hand, turning it into a large hidden weapon and shrouding the 8-armed Dragon King Yoda in the shadow. Yoda had no time to dodge, so he could only block himself with his gun, causing several bloody holes to appear on his body in an instant. Fortunately, they all avoided the critical point. 7 Dragon Gate. Ansara, you have finally mastered it, he stared at Ansara, who ran out of the church several times with bloodshot eyes. Unable to bear it any longer, he covered his mouth with his hand, and large mouthfuls of blood spilled out from between his fingers. Garen rolled to the ground in embarrassment and tried to turn over, but he couldn't use any strength at all. If I meet this person alone, I will die. At this time, he could still calmly judge the strength of the other person and himself. Finally, he half knelt on the ground with support, and his eyes followed Ansara through the door. Is this the strength of a true peak warrior? You can still be so powerful at the age of nearly 80, he originally thought that he had reached the pinnacle of a warrior, but he didn't expect to see Ansara, who was so much stronger than himself. Strong. When he and the Dragon King arrived, Anceloto first defeated the 2 Secret Service generals, massacred a large number of the besiegers, and was obviously injured. Afterwards, he fought with him head-on with several moves, but the Dragon King found an opportunity and shot him twice. In this way, he was able to explode in the end and almost killed himself. And it seemed like he had to leave in a hurry, otherwise if he stayed here, everyone might die. Ansara didn't even use all his strength in the end. The injuries sustained were minor at best. Garen felt inexplicable for a moment. Anceloto is obviously a peak hard Qigong fighter like him, and his skills are even much deeper than his. If he had broken out earlier and we had competed at peak condition, I would have been killed instantly. Garen felt bitter in his heart, but more excited. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 126. Clang. The bell sounded again outside the door. Ansara's figure finally slowly disappeared into the distance. At the same time, the killers in the manor quickly retreated. Obviously, Ansara did not intend to completely break up with the Yalu Federation, so he quickly stopped his attack when he had the absolute upper hand without killing the 2 general-level officers. Garen stood up with some difficulty, and after a while, his strong physical fitness and hard Qigong had an obvious effect. Much better and faster than others. He looked back at the people in the church. The few remaining safeguards were carefully carrying the 2 generals onto stretchers. Irasi and Sulin were squatting next to the 8-armed Dragon King. Yoda's injuries were too horrific. A blood hole the size of a fist was directly punched through his shoulder. All the bones and flesh inside disappeared into minced meat. At this time, his face was pale. He leaned his back against the wall and allowed the medical staff around him to deal with the injury and quickly stop the bleeding. Seeing Garen looking over, he was actually in the mood to glare at him. What are you looking at? I'm not dead yet. Arasai also ran over quickly at this time and came to Garen's side. Looking at Garen's chest that was shot, she wanted to reach out and touch it, but she didn't dare, for fear of hurting Garen. Her beautiful eyes were shining brightly, and she asked worriedly, "Are you okay?" "It's nothing, my strength is much stronger than some tough-talking old immortals." Garen was embarrassed and sneered at the 8-armed Dragon King. He just couldn't stand Dragon King Yoda. This guy was obviously no longer strong. He was so old, but he actually thought he was still arrogant like that when he was young. I really thought he was the best in the world. Moreover, the other party's martial arts realm was in a mess, and he could actually be on par with him by relying on hot weapons, which made Garen a little unhappy. You want to die, right? Yoda was obviously angry, and he hurriedly wanted to get up and roll up his sleeves. Come on, come on. I'll stand there and let you hit me. If you can hit me painfully without using a gun, I'll count you as the winner, Garen shouted back. You. Ahem, Yoda was so angry that he almost vomited blood, You stinky boy. Okay, okay, everyone, please stop talking. Sulin quickly stood up and stood between the two of them, with a look of helplessness on his face. Both of you are the top beings in their respective fields. There is no need to ruin the harmony just because of a little quarrel. The purple-bearded bald man also spoke on the stretcher. I have a suggestion here, I wonder if you too. Needless to say, it's impossible for me to join the Secret Service. It's better to be alone and free. The eight-armed Dragon King immediately refused. Don't you think about it anymore? Joining a country is better than being alone. No need, everyone has his own ambitions. The Dragon King shook his head without any hesitation. The purple-bearded man and Lieutenant General Crone both felt a little regretful, and they exchanged looks. Compared with Garen, who is facing Ansara head-on, they actually value the eight-armed Dragon King Yoda more. Talents like Yoda will increase their combat effectiveness exponentially with the power of thermal weapons. Nowadays, just controlling a firearm is so powerful. It would be unimaginable to use more powerful weapons on the battlefield. It can almost influence a small war. And a talent like Garen, no matter how powerful he is at most a top soldier in special operations, assassination and invasion behind enemy lines. No matter how powerful he can never compare to the enlarged version of Dragon King Yoda. But no matter what, such talent recruitment is still necessary. The two stopped carrying their stretchers, and their eyes fell on Garen standing by the wall at the door. What about Mr. Galen's wishes? Are you interested in joining our newly established Secret Service department? The purple-bearded man also knew that he had slighted Galen just now, so he quickly made up for it. If you are willing to join, you will be given the position of Deputy Minister. Absolutely no problem. I'm sorry, that's not what I'm after. Garen shook his head. His face was equally pale. Ever since he was slapped several times by Ansara, he still felt that his body had not fully recovered the smooth circulation of his energy and blood. Really? Crone shook his head with regret. Well, in this case, we won't force it. The two of you were seriously injured this time and need to recover. The manor will be under strict control 24/7. Just tell us what you need about safety and various medications. He knows that many martial artists have their own methods of healing injuries, which are particularly effective, but require different things from ordinary people. The failure of recruitment this time was actually not too unexpected. Not from the perspective of whether they are really unwilling to join the government, but from the perspective of playing hard to get. Even if the two wanted to join, they would not agree so quickly. And anyway, both of them are friends invited by Sulin. Even if they don't join, they can easily contact each other in the future, which is actually a strength on his side. After a fierce battle, a large number of supporting soldiers and medical staff arrived and began to clean up the battlefield in an orderly manner. The fighting in the manor lasted only 10 minutes, and the number of casualties reached hundreds. The ground was littered with body parts, and blood flowed slowly along the lower corners. Under the sunlight, there were already swarms of blowflies buzzing in some places. When the support troops who came to support saw this scene, they all became nervous. Fortunately, the general was fine, otherwise this would be the biggest scandal since the founding of the Yalu Federation. Two Secret Service generals who were responsible for the elite special force personnel were actually forced to defeat by an international killer organization and died in the final battle. This would be a fatal blow to the Federation's reputation. It's like a police chief being robbed of his home by a robber. When word spreads to the international community, other countries will look down upon the Federation's strength and may even regard the Federation as a soft persimmon and send people to cause trouble. At that time, even if the persimmon is not soft, it will be really soft. With the support of two medical staff, Garen finally stopped being tense and relaxed slowly. As soon as he relaxed, he felt dizzy, and a tide of exhaustion suddenly surged into his head. "Give me a quiet room, I want to rest," he whispered. "No problem." Without waiting for Sulin to reply, Iracy spoke first. At this time, Garen felt that even his ears were a little confused and he couldn't hear clearly. He didn't know what kind of martial arts and Shailogo's palms were, but now he was in a very bad state and needed to practice. This was the first time he felt tired. This is simply incredible. In past fights, no matter what kind of opponent he was, even if he was a master fighter like Andrila, he could maintain his spirit without wavering and could hardly feel the limit of his endurance. But now he felt very tired. He seemed to hear what Arisai was saying, but he couldn't hear it at all. He just barely kept his consciousness clear and allowed several people to support him. He was carried on a stretcher and sent to a room, and then he finally fell asleep. I don't know how long it took. Garen slowly woke up. Opening his eyes, he was lying on a large round bed, surrounded by pure white plush, as if he was lying among countless white feathers. The ceiling is covered with light purple wallpaper, and the edges are engraved with fine floral patterns, which looks extremely delicate. Taking a deep breath, a faint fragrance filled the bed, a bit like the fragrance of flowers, but more like the fragrance of a woman's virginity. Garen turned his head and looked towards the bed. On a curved chair beside the bed on the right side, a beautiful and delicate purple-haired girl was sitting. Her long purple hair was tied into a ponytail, and the hair on her forehead was combed sideways. A feeling of purity and charm combined. This girl is Sulin's sister Arisai. She seemed to be very tired, and she was dozing off gently with her head tilted. This was completely inconsistent with her usual elegant image, but gave Garen a more realistic sense of closeness. In addition to Iris, there is also a basin of clean water for wiping on the purple bedside table, with a black towel soaked in it. "Are you awake?" Iris was in a daze, just in time to see Garen open his eyes and quickly stand up. "How do you feel?" "Teacher Garen," she asked nervously. "It's okay, I can just take care of it myself." Garen felt his body and seemed to have recovered a lot. The palms of Anchalugo are probably just a martial art with temporary effects. Plus I'm physically strong enough, so there shouldn't be any problem. He propped himself up and half leaned against the head of the bed. "Is this here?" Garen then noticed that the layout of this room was very soft and delicate, with floral patterns everywhere, and a light fragrance filling the room. The most eye-catching thing is a pink sofa in the corner of the room, which is made into a pink hippopotamus as tall as a person. The hippopotamus back is the backrest, which looks very naive. Extremely cute. "This is my room." Iris smiled lightly. "All the rooms are occupied by the wounded, so I might as well let you rest in my room." "You won't be surprised, right?" "Of course not," Galen said, and then smiled. He vaguely felt that after this battle, Iris's attitude towards him seemed to be a little different. He turned sideways and looked out the window. The sky was bright outside, and a light layer of blue and white was sprinkled on the window sill. "Can you get me a glass of water?" Garen felt a little thirsty. Of course. Iris quickly poured a glass of water from the exquisite purple water bottle and handed it to Garen. After drinking 2 full cups of warm water in one gulp, Garen slowly breathed a sigh of relief. "How is the situation now?" "Fortunately, my eldest brother has already stepped in to manage the manor. The House of Representatives is very angry about this terrorist attack. Now the place is surrounded by thousands of guards inside and outside. There are also 3 general-level officers who have arrived, absolutely guaranteed our security while tracking the whereabouts of terrorists." She paused for a moment and looked into Garen's eyes with her beautiful eyes. "Thanks to you, Master Garen, this time, otherwise I might be really in trouble. Sulin has also helped me a lot." "Why are you talking about this?" Garen waved his hand. "By the way," Father said, "if you wake up and your body is fine, please go to the conference hall. There is something important, and it's about the golden sword seed." "Golden sword seed?" Garen's eyes narrowed. "Is this what Ansara is here for?" "Yes," Father said that he will tell everything. "The attack of Ansara means that this is no longer a secret." "Okay, Let me take a rest first. Garen nodded. Then I'll go out first so I won't disturb you. Iris got up and left very wisely. She understands that stronger martial artists don't like to be disturbed by others when they are recuperating. Garen nodded, watched after Iris left, closed the door, and then slowly closed his eyes. There is no change in the attribute column below the field of view, it is still the same. Power 2.64, Agile 1.22, Physique 2.09, Intelligence 1.53, Potential 98%. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 127. It only increased the attributes by 0.01 on average. There is still 2% left to increase the potential, just a little bit. Unfortunately, there are no antiques of misfortune for me to absorb. Antiques of misfortune. What is the secret of this kind of thing? He has been unable to figure it out. What is the potential in the antiques of misfortune is just a guess. The more dangerous the ancient bloody legends of the antiques, the greater the potential they contain. It's a pity. It would be nice if the ring on my uncle's hand was stronger. Wearing it for a few months can replenish these 2 potential points. But no matter how strong it is, my uncle probably won't be able to wait for me to find out before something goes wrong. The level of that ring is too low, and it has basically no effect on him. It will probably have some effect after wearing it for a few years. It's better to start with the golden ring. I wonder if this golden sword holder may have potential. If antiques with widespread legends can be antiques of bad luck, then why are some similar antiques I found later completely useless? Does it have to be something that can bring bad luck to collectors? Does something have potential? Forget it, I don't want to think about it so much. This matter is not over yet. I will know when the time comes. He stopped thinking about it and looked at the current skill bar. My womb. Colossus mutation, bursting, top layer, skin hardened by 1 level, iron body, chi and blood stabilized by 1 level, boulder skill. Iron yin palm, the accumulation has not reached the entry level, accumulates 2 layers of body toxins. Fire hands, progress is weak. 4th floor. Ansara probably didn't know that I killed a king general last time, otherwise he would never talk nonsense in the end and just kill me directly. But if he escaped this time, he will be in trouble next time. Now that I'm stuck in this vortex of trouble, I can't leave and look for low-level secret weapons. But if I can't do it, it doesn't mean Sulin can't do it. Maybe I can ask him to help me find some low-level secret weapons for practice. The most valuable thing to him is the low-level 4th-rate secret martial arts that require less external conditions. Generally, the more advanced or high-level secret martial arts are, the more advanced they are, the more powerful they are, and the fewer restrictions they have, the more they need external assistance. It is not conducive to his practice at all. After getting out of bed and putting on the clothes prepared by the bedside, Garen suddenly saw the martial arts notes he had previously found from General Pink Eyes lying underneath. He took them over and flipped through them. The above are all about Wang Jiang's confusion when he was practicing martial arts and the solutions he came up with afterwards. It's like a person records his own difficulties and then concentrates on overcoming them. Garen just browsed through it casually at first, but unexpectedly he became fascinated by it without even realizing it. Many of the things recorded in it are unexpected flaws and difficulties in martial arts. There are many that Garen has encountered and many that he has yet to encounter. Most of them have solutions later. Only then did Garen realize the value of this booklet. Because of his poor background, he was only a 3rd-rate secret martial arts sect, and his many martial arts knowledge did not reach a certain level. This booklet could just try to make up for some of his shortcomings. This also let him know why his physical attributes had not improved for so long. In other words, if it weren't for the innate ability to maintain the solidification of physical fitness, his quality might have started to decline long ago. Although it is not of great use to me, It is very popular and instructive for ordinary people to learn martial arts. Garen looked at the booklet with satisfaction. This was an unexpected gain. Inadvertently, he turned to a page about the practice of secret martial arts. I tried to practice the cumulative low-level secret martial arts, but failed and the progress was extremely low. Why? This is the problem that King Pink Eyes will encounter. Exactly the same as what Garen encountered. His expression gradually became serious. Turn gently to the next page. The line of text recorded above made Garen's heart skip a beat at first, but then when he saw the text below, the corners of his mouth finally couldn't help but curve. The light yellow paper is clearly recorded with dense black characters. Most of the accumulated low-level secret weapons are incomplete. Here is a rough summary of the missing parts of some common secret weapons. 1. Bayonet hands. Boil water from the stamens of scarlet flowers and smear it on your hands, using the same technique as before. 2. Bazbek arc swordsmanship. It is necessary to create a special hilt for continuous training. The hilt design is as follows. 3. Odin steel fist. It needs to be practiced with the spiked plate and the potion in the first stage of the fist technique. The more Garen went through, the more satisfied he became, not because of the missing parts of many other secret martial arts that he had never heard of, but because he actually found the missing parts of the two low-level secret martial arts he practiced, Yanliu Hand and Iron Yin Palm. 31. Iron Yin Palm. You need to hang upside down when practicing just such a missing piece of content. Garen just scanned it and recalled the Iron Yin Palm training method that he had remembered before, and he immediately became enlightened. Many of those seemingly weird training methods, if practiced with the body hanging upside down, will immediately become smoother from the perspective of martial arts concepts. Look again, the back. 38. Flame style hands. The most time-consuming among low-level secret martial arts. Its practice must be assisted by hot iron sand initially. The iron sand basin is used to continuously beat and insert, and later it can be replaced with real charcoal. Specific training methods are attached with pictures. Following are several clearly outlined diagrams of the steps and stages of practice. There are training methods for each stage of Yanliu hands. Garen couldn't help but laugh softly. Finally, even without going to the Nantian Holy Fist sect, I can perfect these two low-level secret martial arts. With this harvest, he was defeated due to injury, and his originally depressed mood suddenly eased. Practice hanging upside down. I want to try it. Garen was about to try it impatiently, but when he got excited, he felt a little tight in his chest. I haven't recovered yet. Ansara is really powerful. Such a light force can actually have a negative impact on me for so long. Garen was shocked. Recalling Ansara's tricks at that time, his originally happy mood calmed down again. Come down. Boom, boom, boom. Mr. Galen, please go to the conference hall. Breakfast will be delivered there. I know. Garen replied loudly, quickly arranged his clothes, and glanced at himself in front of the mirror. The strong white body is well proportioned and toned, without any sense of fat or excessive muscle disharmony. Her purple-black hair was a little long, almost covering her eyes, and her shawl fell down, making her look a little frizzy. The dark red eyes faintly shining through the hair give people a cold and powerful aura. Wow! Putting on a black shirt and a white suit, letting his shawl black hair spread freely, Garen tugged on the collar of his shirt and took one last look at himself in the mirror. The man in the mirror has a hint of wildness, but also a hint of indifference and strength. His chin is slightly raised, which can give people a strong sense of fear and oppression without opening his mouth. Unknowingly, I have become like this. Garen lifted his hair that blocked his sight. I pressed my chest lightly, and there was still some slight numbness. Ansara. He put the notes in his pocket, turned around and opened the door to leave. Manor Meeting Hall. In a small light yellow room, there is a zigzag yellow wooden table in the middle, with several black leather chairs surrounding it. A square chandelier hangs from a black wire above the table, emitting a soft yellow light. Sulan's father, Lieutenant General Crone, was sitting at the main seat beside the curtain, wearing a black suit, quietly holding a cup of hot coffee and drinking it slowly. Dragon King Yoda and Sulin sat together with calm expressions and drank coffee lightly. An old woman with a gloomy face sat alone on the other side. The old woman was also wearing a military uniform, with golden epaulets on her shoulders shining with 3 silver stars and a pair of crossed swords. That's the sign of a lieutenant general. Sorry, I'm late. In front of the opened door, Garen slowly entered, glanced at the people present, and sat directly next to Sulin. It's okay, your injuries are not serious. Crone smiled friendly at Garen. At this time, Garen's temperament changed into a well-fitting dress, which perfectly reflected his own strong strength and courage. Sulin and Yoda looked at Garen in surprise. After the battle at Ansara, Garen's original strong aura seemed to have gradually subsided, and now he looked like a volcano hidden under the sea. Unlike before, just seeing him can make you think of strength, power, and crushing. He is worthy of being a martial arts master who can confront Ansara head-on in a short period of time. Crone admired in his heart and pointed to the white-haired old woman sitting alone. Let me introduce, this is the head of the newly established Special Response Room of the Federation, Lieutenant General Lanny. The old woman Lanny nodded dully to the 3 of them without saying a word. Lieutenant General Lanny is the main person in charge of tracking down the aftermath of this terrorist attack. She is very interested in your knowledge of the actual situation and hopes that you can tell her some information about Ansara. Of course, I will also tell her about me. Tell me the source of the conflict with Ansara. No problem. Sulin was the first to express his opinion. I have reservations about some personal privacy matters. Don't worry, it won't have any impact on this incident, Yoda replied lazily. I have no objection either. Garen nodded. Crone nodded with satisfaction. Then let me start. He waved the guard to close the door. Then scan the whole place. Actually, no one except the maker knows what the essence of the golden sword is. Including me, the owner. He paused and continued. When I went to the ruins of the Nabuta's empire in the 5 Stars continent, I purchased a golden ornament from the elders of the indigenous tribes there. The image was of a sword piercing an ancient stone similar to a throne. It was only the size of a palm, and it's almost like a pen holder. I didn't expect this to be the mysterious and weird golden sword holder in the rumors. Wuxing continent is different from Arshian continent and Lan continent. There are many backward and ancient areas there. It's not surprising to have such gold decorations. How do you know that the decoration is the Golden Sword constellation? Lieutenant General Lanny asked. Road. Please wait, can you first tell me what the Golden Sword seat does? Sulin interjected. This was confirmed by my daughter and also by Ansara. As for its function, some say that it contains the secret of an ancient and powerful martial arts inheritance. Others say that it is something used by ancient warlocks to curse souls. There are also it is said that the Golden Sword seat is the key to a mysterious ruins. Those who open the ruins can get gifts from the devil. There are different opinions, and I actually don't know its real secret, Crone explained. Originally, I didn't care much about it, I just regarded it as a good collectible. I didn't expect Ansara to suddenly contact me and want to trade with me to get this thing. You also understand that Ansara is such a terrorist organization. If it can be eliminated by taking the opportunity, it will be a good thing for me. The Federation is something worth celebrating for the 3 continents. So you used this as bait and invited the entire Secret Service to come forward to catch Ansara in one fell swoop. Unexpectedly, the opponent was too strong, so that's why it ended up like this, Yoda interjected. That's true. It's just that I miscalculated, and it's indeed my responsibility that caused so many casualties, Crone sighed. Not even the entire Secret Service can stop Anchaluo. If Crone and your son Sulin hadn't invited 2 top experts to help, you would have been completely in trouble this time, Lanny said calmly. I'm already miserable, Crone shrugged helplessly. We invite you here this time mainly because we have discovered the ruins of the place where Ansara went. So I hope you can help our military to intercept this terrorist leader. Although we are reluctant, we have to admit it, maybe only Mr. Garen and Yoda, together with the army, can suppress Ansara. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 128. Yoda coughed twice. I can't survive it. It's impossible to recover from the shoulder injury within a few months. I didn't think carefully. Crone nodded to express his understanding. Garen pondered for a moment. I also need to recuperate, so I can't attack right away, and even if I do it now, I'm no match for Ansara. Although I don't want to admit it, I have to say that Ansara's martial arts has reached its peak level. The atmosphere in the room also temporarily fell silent. Crone sighed and waved the soldier to open the door. Several maids immediately brought breakfast, a light blue long bread with some apple slices, large pieces of pineapple, and a cup of unknown ingredients. The red drink was still bubbling. Everyone didn't say much and ate breakfast quietly. There was only the sound of knives and forks clinking on the table from time to time. Garen ate quietly while carefully estimating Ansara's strength and the recovery time needed for his injuries. Ansara has worked hard to get the golden sword seat, and he is obviously certain about it. I wonder how much some of you knew about Ansara before, Crone asked in a low voice. Garen was the first to shake his head, expressing his ignorance. Sulin also shook his head, but looked at the eight-armed dragon King Yoda. Yoda had a thick bandage on his shoulder, and he quickly took the food on the table with one hand and kept stuffing it into his mouth. Don't look at me. I don't know very well. Ansara himself is a master of my generation. I just heard about this organization that he later joined or established. Although they knew that what he said was completely unreliable, it wasn't that they didn't know, it was just that they didn't want to, but Sulin and others couldn't force it. Garen drank the drink in one breath and put down the cup gently. Actually, no matter what purpose Ansara has, no matter what ruins he goes to, there is no way he will never come out. When he comes out of the ruins, we will know what he is asking for. What we have to do now, we are considering how to deal with him. So many people were defeated by him before. If we do it again, do you think you can really resist him based on the strength here? After saying this, few people remained silent. Only the new Lieutenant General Lanny frowned. Garen shook his head. I'm just a pure warrior, so I won't get involved so much. When you think of how to deal with Ansara, Sulin, just tell me. I have to go down and recover from my injuries. No matter what the plan is, everyone is injured now. Recuperate. If it's not good, everything will be wasted. I'm sorry. He stood up, turned around and pushed the door open. Along the red carpet corridor guarded by guards, Garen walked straight out of the small building. It was already getting bright outside, and small patrol motorcycles were heard coming from a distance from time to time. The originally empty space in the manor was filled with patrolling guards in yellow military uniforms. Temporary security fortifications had been set up in corners of some places that were easy to defend but difficult to attack. There were patrolling guards everywhere in the surrounding buildings and on the rooftops. The entire manor turned into a large military camp overnight. Garen took a deep breath. The smell of gunpowder smoke and blood from yesterday's fierce battle still lingered in the air. Striding towards the lake outside the manor, he planned to take a good rest and take a swim to relax his body. Suddenly, a guard came quickly not far away, wearing a yellow steel helmet. He ran up to him and stood at attention with a snap-in salute. Mr. Gallen, there is a little boy outside the manor who said he came to see you and refuses to leave. Little boy, Garen suddenly recalled the snot-nosed boy he met around the eight-armed Dragon King's residence. Could it be him? Thank you for the notice. Please take me to see it. Okay. Please follow me. The guard nodded and turned around, trotting towards the gate of the manor. Garen followed neither too fast nor too slowly. His one step was equivalent to the distance of 2 or 3 steps of the guard. It looked like he was walking leisurely, but in fact his speed was not too slow. Soon, after passing through the heavy defense lines, Garen saw the little boy with a runny nose in a temporary guard room set up on the right side of the door. The boy's face was pale, and his arms were swollen beyond human shape, almost twice their original size. It looked like 2 adult men's arms, wearing sleeveless gray linen clothes, and their hair was as messy as a chicken coop. As soon as Garen entered the door, he recognized him as the little guy who wanted to learn how to fight with him. But what left him speechless was that this kid was dragging a petite and cute little girl behind him. The moment he saw this little girl, Garen's eyes suddenly narrowed. The atmosphere in the entire guard room instantly became dull, and a terrifying sense of oppression pervaded everyone's heads like a dark cloud. It seemed as if the sky was about to collapse. Not only the little boy, but also the 2 guards supervising him were trembling all over and almost didn't draw their guns immediately. This is the powerful sense of oppression that Chi has on any creature, and it is the creature's instinctive fear of danger and natural enemies. The little boy was trembling all over, his face became increasingly pale, and his chapped lips were almost bleeding. Pretend to be a ghost, Garen sat on the chair, looking down at the little boy and girl indifferently, without any emotion in his eyes. But the strange thing is that when everyone was trembling in fear, the beautiful little girl's originally pitiful expression suddenly changed, from fear and panic to calm and cunning, with a look of surprise flashing across her face. "How did you find me?" Her voice was clear and melodious, like a bird's cry. "It seems that you were the one who gave him the guidance at that time." Garen did not answer directly, staring closely at the little girl. "I just said that when a little guy can actually see my strength. I am quite old." "You are still pretending to be young. This is the first time I have seen a warrior like you." "You brat. What do you mean you're a lot of age?" The little girl's eyes changed, and she suddenly felt like she had been poked in a painful spot. "Don't you understand what it means to respect the old and love the young? If this kid wasn't suitable to inherit my martial arts, do you think I would ask him to find you?" As soon as the little girl spoke, the surrounding guards were frightened, and they quickly pulled out their guns and pointed them at her. "Don't be nervous, he's just a master of special martial arts." Garen raised his hand to tell all the guards to calm down. "You guys go out first and I'll have a nice talk with them. I'm sorry, we must supervise the entire process of unknown foreigners. This is Lieutenant General Lanny's highest order." A lieutenant walked into the door and said calmly. "Mr. Gallen, please don't make me wait." As soon as he entered the door, he felt a strange sense of danger that made the hairs on his body stand up, and his hand unconsciously pressed on the handle of the gun at his waist. His eyes were fixed on the weird little girl. Garen's eyes shifted and fell on the young male lieutenant. "Okay, I understand your difficulties. Then let's go out and talk." He suddenly regained his courage, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Standing up, he walked directly out of the guard room and walked towards a small forest outside the manor. The boy was followed closely by the little girl, and the 3 of them quickly disappeared into the forest. After walking quickly for a distance in the forest, Garen turned around and stopped until no one noticed him. "Tell me, who are you and what is your purpose?" Garen looked at the little girl behind him calmly. This little girl, who looks pink and cute and is only 8 or 9 years old, gives him the feeling of an old monster burrowing into a child's body. She is definitely not an ordinary martial artist. The person was no more than his waist high, wearing a somewhat worn maroon suspender skirt, with straight and smooth auburn shawl hair, and horizontal bangs on his forehead. Wearing thick black cotton socks and small red leather boots on the lower body, the skin is as crystal clear and smooth as white snow, and a pair of big burgundy eyes are gleaming. Walking in the forest with thick fallen leaves, jumping up and down, and the long hair moving with each movement, giving people a pure and lovely feeling. If it weren't for the hint of cunning and sophistication on her pink face, no one would think there was a problem. But since Garen became a fighter, he rarely only looks at people based on their appearance. What is your purpose? He looked at this weird little girl quietly. You can call me Celine. My purpose is very simple. I want you to accept Ilidas as your disciple. The little girl Celine stopped talking nonsense and spoke frankly. Originally I didn't plan to expose it, but to be on the safe side, I thought it would be better to be open and honest to avoid any repercussions in the future. Garen glanced at the confused little boy following behind. I have heard that in the secret martial arts world, there are similar secret martial arts that reduce the size of the body and reduce the loss of energy to extend the lifespan. I didn't expect to see such an example. It's good that you know how powerful my old man is. The little girl raised her chin proudly. My old man originally planned to accept him as his disciple, but my martial arts is completely inconsistent with his. When I saw you going to Yoda's residence that day, I just happened to find that your martial arts style is very consistent with the little guy's personality. And the most important thing is that the little guy Ilidas seems to follow you. He actually followed your instructions and did enough training. She also showed a headache expression at this time. I just saw Ansara's strength. Rumor has it that it was the peak of the previous generation. I don't know what your strength is. Garen changed the subject and said calmly. A powerful and terrifying aura slowly began to gather in his body. A large amount of energy surrounded him, invisibly condensing into the shadow of a giant elephant. There was no roar, no movement, the giant elephant just enveloped Garen quietly, standing there. Its eyes seemed to be filled with terrifying blood. An invisible pressure suddenly pressed on the little girl Celine. Ansara, you have actually seen him. Xylan was surprised. Her little body flipped over and jumped away, lightly avoiding the suppression of Garen's spirit. Garen's eyes narrowed. The opponent could avoid his courageous suppression so easily and did not confront him head-on. He was obviously not an ordinary character. A warrior who can accurately sense the speed and range of chi and suppress it is at least a fighter with his own chi. He slowly raised his right hand and was about to start fighting. Don't be nervous. It's not your style to bully children all the time, right? If word gets out that the general of the Nantian Holy Fist sect actually bullies a 7-year-old girl, woo. Celine immediately changed her face, her eyes filled with tears. With tears in his eyes, he pulled down the clothes on his shoulders, revealing his white jade-like shoulders, and opened his voice. Powerful. Snapped. Garen's face twitched and he rushed over to cover her mouth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 129. Celine struggled under his grip, but the difference in strength was too great and she couldn't break free. Be strong. The scream in her mouth became much smaller after passing through the palm of her hand, but she could still vaguely hear what she really wanted to shout. Garen felt like he had an unusual headache. If word got out, people would think that he was a pedophile pervert who especially liked young girls. I don't know what his sister, parents, and relatives would think of him if they found out. Let go, Celine shouted loudly. If you don't scream, let me go. Garen felt his temples twitching. I won't talk nonsense, Celine nodded quickly like a chicken pecking at rice. Garen then slowly let go of her. After adjusting her clothes, the little girl Celine stepped back angrily. Abnormal. Garen's face looked ugly again. Just tell me if you want to die. His voice was low, and the creaking sound could be heard from his fists. Okay, let's stop making trouble. Celine finally became serious. Actually, even if I didn't come, you had planned to accept Ilidas, right? You know, Garen nodded slightly and understood immediately. His talent is not bad, but the most important thing is his strong perseverance. To practice my martial arts, the most important thing is to have enough perseverance. Otherwise, No matter how talented you are, it will be useless. He glanced at Celine. It seems like you already know something about me, but I know absolutely nothing about you. The little girl Celine was silent for a moment. I am the inheritor of the ancient martial art Sea-King Fist. You must have noticed that I am quite old. This is a secret technique in my Sea-King Fist that locks the essence and maintains peak condition. If you want, I will apologize. I can leave it to you. Sea-King Fist. Garen frowned slightly. There are actually descendants of this style now. I am the last generation, Celine replied calmly. I'm still a virgin, by the way. Garen's head jumped. I said, it's none of my business that you're still a virgin. Can you please stop being so jumpy? Virgin mother-in-law, someone seems to be coming. The little boy on the side, Ilidas, said suddenly and naively. Garen was suddenly startled, and unexpectedly heard subtle footsteps at this moment. His eyes turned sharply and instantly fell on the little boy Ilidas. Even I'm only now experiencing this level of sensory acuity. With his mind racing, Garen glanced at the two people in front of him twice. Suddenly, I noticed that there was a hint of nervousness in the little girl Celine's eyes. The footsteps were getting closer, and vague curses could be heard. The tension in Celine's eyes grew stronger. Come with me. Garen finally spoke, turned, and walked towards the manor. Celine breathed a sigh of relief and quickly followed with the little boy in her arms. After 3 days of thorough recovery at the Sulin family's manor, Galen's injuries were almost healed. He asked for a courtyard near the lake and moved in alone. He practiced the giant elephant secret martial arts every day to completely restore his body to its peak level. At the same time, he began to prepare various equipment for practicing Yanliu hands. The weird little girl didn't go anywhere with the little boy Ilidas. She just followed Garen closely and stayed in a temporary tent on the edge of the yard. The troops provided food and drink every day. And don't talk to anyone else. Occasionally, Garen would come out to rejuvenate the blood in the little boy's arms to help him recover as quickly as possible, but he didn't even mention teaching him martial arts. However, the two of them didn't take it seriously. It seemed like they hadn't had a good rest and food or drink for a long time, and they looked happy even while living in a military tent. Everyone in the manor regarded the two as friends and descendants of Garen, and they would try their best to satisfy any reasonable requests. In the afternoon, the sky turned red in the evening, and the setting sun cast a large red light, illuminating the entire Simo lake in a golden red. In the square yard by the lake, Garen was hanging upside down on a black iron frame, his body hanging straight in the air, his hands hanging vertically downwards, and the originally fair skin on his hands and face were all congested and turned purple. Wow! He took a deep breath, his belly bulging high. The purple-red congestion on his face and hands actually slowly faded and turned white as he inhaled. Call. With a sudden burst of air, Garen's fingers began to stab each other's palms rapidly, interacting back and forth, constantly making snapping sounds. This is the method of practicing Iron Yin Palm. Only by hanging upside down can you truly practice this fourth-rate secret martial art. Iron Yin Palm is a fourth-rate secret martial art, and it is not that no one has practiced it. On the contrary, there are many warriors who practice it. Most warriors or martial arts enthusiasts are more willing to do anything as long as they get the secret martial arts. Start practicing. After all, no matter how bad the secret martial arts is, it is still a secret martial arts, which is much stronger than ordinary martial arts. There are many practitioners of Iron Yin Palm, and the strongest among them is said to be able to hold palms comparable to fine iron, and his palm power is somewhat sinister. It can only be regarded as slightly stronger than the limit of ordinary martial arts. In fact, most of the fourth-rate secret martial arts are martial arts created by non-secret martial artists who reached their limits and broke through them. Both are secret weapons, but the advantage of Iron Yin Palm over Iron Body lies in its ability to remove a small amount of toxins and impurities from the body, and utilize their waste into means of attacking opponents. In this way, you can better adjust your own health. Garen repeated this action again and again. Whenever his energy and blood recovered, he quickly struck each other with his fingers. Her long purple-black hair was spread upside down, covering her eyes. He simply closed his eyes and looked carefully at the light red skill bar at the bottom of his field of vision. As I repeated this basic practice method over and over again, the skill bar in my field of vision finally began to change. The column of Tian Palm gradually began to blur. Finally there has been a change. Garen was overjoyed. He had been repeating the Iron Yin Palm training method since the morning, and it was not until the afternoon that changes gradually occurred. Suddenly, the column of Iron Yin Palm quickly blurred, and then changed into new handwriting. Iron Yin Palm, getting started, 2 levels in total. At the moment when the handwriting changed, Garen suddenly felt that some heavy and turbid things in his body quickly gathered towards his hands. His body suddenly became a little light, but his hands became a little heavy. He opened his eyes and looked at his palms. The hands have completely turned light black, as if they have been soaked in black ink for a long time and have not been washed away. Inadvertently, he glanced at the attribute column and found that the attributes had also changed a little. The physical fitness column suddenly increased from 2.09 to 2.15. This Iron Yin Palm actually has the effect of tempering one's physique, which is an unexpected surprise. He looked carefully at his hands. I don't know how powerful it is. Let's try it first. He glanced around and suddenly fell on a small white bark tree in the yard. The body that was hanging upside down bent upwards, and then he gently untied the rope binding his feet, and fell down to stand firmly. He strode to the little tree. The small tree is only as thick as a human arm, with white bark, and looks lush and vibrant. Garen raised his palms and pressed lightly on the bark of the tree. There was no movement at all. After releasing his palm, 2 slightly black handprints were immediately left on the bark of the tree. 2 black ants climbed up from the bottom of the tree and were crawling along the bark. They had just climbed into the range of the handprints. After taking a few steps, the ants became slower and slower. Finally, their legs and feet slowly curled up, and their bodies curled up and gradually shrank. Get into a ball and fall down. Is this the toxicity of Iron Yin Palm? Garen glanced at it. You can't tell anything from just ants. You need to use other things to test it. He immediately called the guards outside and asked them to find some animals such as cats and dogs, and began to touch the paw prints on the bark of the tree one by one. After barely poisoning the first wolf dog, the handprint gradually disappeared. Garen roughly understood the toxin level of this Iron Yin Palm. It's too weak. It can only poison small animals at most. It may be a bit of a threat to ordinary people, but for fighters with strong physical immunity, it is not scary at all. Look at Yanliu hand again. He ordered the guards to bring in the tools for practicing flame-style hands. There is a large pot of black iron sand, and a large pot of hot coals is placed under it, which is bright red. Garen stood in front of the shelf and rolled up his sleeves. The giant elephant secret martial arts can be blended with the iron body, but I don't know if the Iron Yin Palm can be blended with the Yanliu hand. Unfortunately, if there are still attribute points, I can definitely point the 2 secret martial arts to the highest level. Shaking his head slightly, he put aside his distracting thoughts, quickly inserted his palm into the iron sand, and then immediately pulled it out. Then continue to change hands to insert and take out. Repeat the round trip. At the same time, adjust the body's qi and blood according to Yan Liashao's breathing method and qi and blood circulation. Tisk tisk tisk. A continuous sound echoed in the yard. Garen's hands gradually turned red, and even at the peak of his powerful hard qigong, he began to become congested after being surrounded by high temperatures for a long time. The skin of his hands, which had turned slightly dark due to the Iron Yin Palm, gradually began to turn into a heavy black-red color, like rust. The palms of both hands gradually swelled larger than before, and fine black and red lines gradually appeared on the surface of the skin. Garen only felt his hands burning hot, and a cool breath quickly surged out of his brain, flowing directly to his hands, which began to moisten and soak them, neutralizing the burning heat caused by the iron sand. He closed his eyes tightly and stared at the skill bar below his vision. Soon, the Yanliu hand column on the skill bar finally changed slightly, and the original handwriting gradually became blurred. Flame hands, a preliminary introduction. Fourth floor. New handwriting finally emerged. The moment Yan Liushao entered the game, a sudden change occurred in the skill bar. The skill slots of Yanliu hand and Iron Yin palm blurred and disappeared at the same time. Sure enough, both Yanliu hand and Iron Yin palm are practicing hand secret martial arts, and there is indeed a fusion phenomenon when practicing at the same time, just like the original practice of Iron Body Boulder Kung Fu. Garen watched the changes in the skill bar expectantly. This was also the key reason why he insisted on practicing the two secret martial arts at the same time. The Flame Flow hand and Iron Yin palm in the skill bar blurred and disappeared at the same time, replaced by a brand new skill. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 130. The new skills are finally clearly revealed. Unnamed, mutated flame hands, 1 layer, 4 layers in total, combined with the flame style hand technique of Iron Yin palm. External heat and internal heat are mixed to remove impurities and toxins, and at the same time improve physical fitness and high heat resistance. Attacking the enemy will generate heat poison. The practice is advanced by alternating two methods. Is it based on the Yanliu hand, mixed with the Iron Yin palm? Garen thought thoughtfully. The same was true for the giant elephant secret martial arts at the beginning, with the giant elephant as the main weapon mixed with other secret martial arts. It seems the same now. As for naming, since it is a combination of Iron Yin palm and Yanliu hand, let's take half of each and call it Red Yin Gong. As soon as this thought flashed through my mind, the new skill in the skill bar quickly changed from unnamed to the word Qian Gong. The innate supernatural energy continuously flows out of cool air and merges into his hands. Garen can clearly feel that his hands are being strengthened at a terrifying rate of change. It is obviously the effect of the Qian Kung Fu. Laugh. He inserted both hands into the hot iron sand at the same time and simply did not take it out again. The hot iron sand was close to the skin of both hands, and both palms almost felt numb. The wrist above the palm has gradually turned red, all the blue veins are bulging, and the blood is flowing rapidly in the palm. A full 10 minutes later, Garen suddenly pulled out his hands and pressed his backhand against the wall behind him. Hiss! A puff of white smoke suddenly spread from the wall. A black handprint was directly pressed on the wall covered with green moss, and a burning smell filled the air. The first level of Qian Kung Fu can withstand temperatures of more than 100 degrees, and it can barely reach this temperature even if the qi and blood are pumped into the palms. It's amazing, Garen secretly admired. This is the first level. If it can be upgraded to the later levels, at a higher level, combined with the peak of my mutated giant elephant dense martial arts and hard qigong, that means you will die or be injured if you touch it. Put your palms away, go to a water basin on the left side of the brazier, and slowly reach in. The clear water in the cold basin suddenly hissed slowly, and a faint stream of steam floated out. Garen's palms gradually returned to their normal white color. He took out his hand and exerted a little force. His palms suddenly became filled with blood and gradually heated up, giving off a scorching temperature again. The two palms quickly changed from white to light red. From a distance, the hands look like they are just congested with blood. There is basically no abnormality visible and they are very hidden. This move can only increase the lethality in close combat, and it must be effective when it touches the enemy. Unfortunately, the biggest flaw of the fourth-rate secret martial arts is that there is no matching fighting technique. Garen recalled the confrontation with Ansara. If I had Qi Yin Kung at that time, A head-on confrontation would definitely cause extra damage to him, making people afraid to confront me head-on. At that time, he collided head-on with Ansara with a hand knife. If he used the Chiang Kung Fu at that time, he would definitely be able to injure the opponent by surprise. The Chiang Kung Fu is just a hidden technique, used to increase the lethality of a surprise attack. He slowly relaxed the energy and blood in his palms, and their fair skin color suddenly returned. He took off his coat and put it on, walked to the door of the yard, opened the door and walked out. On the river beach, Ilidas was talking to the little girl Celine, one tall and one short. When the two saw Garin coming out, Ilidas immediately ran over. "Teacher! When can I learn your martial arts? Don't call me teacher. You are not yet my disciple." Garin was wearing white casual clothes, with long hair messily hanging around. Dark red eyes were faintly visible in his hair. With his tall and strong body, he just stood in front of the two of them. There is a huge sense of oppression. He glanced at Irides's arms, which had completely returned to normal. Obviously it has something to do with Celine's help during this period. "It seems that you have almost recovered." "Yes, teacher," Ilidas replied loudly. The little body stood upright and was neatly taken care of. It was much better than when we first met. She looked pretty, with short brown hair and delicate white and rosy skin, just like a doll. "Generally. Today, I will teach you a fundamental thing first," Garin said calmly. "Put your arms in front of your chest, one hand clenched and the other hand grasping, and your feet are in a lunge." This is the fighting style that he readjusted after Baiun fighting skills were perfected by him. "This is the starting stance inherited from my section. It can deal with attacks from any side except the back in the shortest time. Let me tell you an important point in advance. A martial artist must never turn his back to the enemy. Except for some special fighting skills. In addition, most martial arts schools have this taboo." "The Virgin Mother-in-law also said so," Ilidas replied naively. "Will you be very powerful if you put on this air first? Because it saves part of the time to raise your hands to attack. Just like this, scoff." Garin spun around and struck out with his right arm like a broadsword, slashing towards Celine beside him. The arms were like blades, and there was a whistling sound in the air. Bang! A piece of wooden stick was directly broken and fell to the ground. Celine jumped upside down, avoided the blow lightly, and landed steadily on a large white rock not far away. A look of shock. "What are you doing? Don't you know what it means to respect the elderly and love the young?" "Ilidas, see clearly." Garin ignored it and stepped forward quickly, instantly changing from the stance to the shooting form. "Shoot straight forward with your right palm. This is a radial shape." Bang! The big stone was cracked with a direct palm, sputtering out small pieces of stone. Celine narrowly jumped away and screamed in anger. Garin bent his right arm and suddenly threw his right hand out like a whip. "This is a swing." Click! A small tree as thick as an arm in the woods by the lake was swept away and fell with a crash. Celine was chased everywhere by him. "You brat! Wait until I know how to bully underage girls." Ah! Celine was almost hit by a falling tree accidentally. Her face turned red with anger and she ran far away, cursing all the way. Garin turned around and let out a breath of turbid air. Those few blows just now were all fired in one breath, and the time before breathing was over. The stand is the easiest posture to attack and defend. You must know that if you stand casually, the distance you raise your arms is farther than when you stand. Don't underestimate such a small time difference. In a real duel, sometimes this is what you fight for, a little difference. "I understand, teacher." Although Ilidas didn't understand very well, he still answered loudly and seriously. Seeing Galen's two powerful attacks just now, his eyes were clearly shining and his face was filled with admiration. "From today on, I will stand on this shelf every day until I can no longer stand and my knees are shaking," Garin said calmly. "Yes. Garen nodded. This boy was very talented and perseverant. He was willing to endure hardships and was obedient. He would do whatever he was told. He is simply the best disciple in his dreams. Even if Garen confiscates his disciple's thoughts now, he can't help but give him a few words of advice sometimes. Seeing Illidus starting to put on airs, Garen corrected some mistakes and then walked directly towards Selene, who was standing far away. "Come with me." Selene stared at him fiercely, hesitated, and then followed. The two walked to a stone table and chair in the forest, and Garen sat down naturally. "Heirs of the Sea King Fist, it is said that your Sea King sect was once a very important giant sect in the north. In ancient times, it was almost divided into kings and became princes. You must know many secrets, right?" he spoke first. Selene jumped onto the stone chair and squatted down. "What do you want to know? Let me make it clear first. I actually don't know much. I want to know about Ansara. When he defeated me, he used a martial art called Dragon Gate." "What is that?" Garen asked his first question. "Dragon Gate," Xylan's face wrinkled. "Are you sure it's Longman?" Her expression became serious. "I'm sure. The name he called out at that time was number 1 Dragon Gate. From number 1 to number 4, my body would be completely paralyzed every time I was hit. It was very weird. This is what Jia Long has been struggling with. After all, his hard Qigong, the principle is the circulation of Qi and blood, and the opponent's Dragon Gate can actually paralyze the body and control Qi and blood. It is simply a specialized hard Qigong nemesis." Selene fell silent, seeming to be recalling. The evening breeze blew, making the leaves in the forest rustle, bringing a slight chill. The red light of the setting sun penetrated the leaves and slanted on the ground, tree trunks, stone tables, and chairs, and the two of them. There is a vaguely beautiful picture like a maple forest. Selene stretched out her fingers and gently brushed away the yellow leaves on the white stone table. A small yellow beetle crawled gently onto her index finger. 7 Dragon Gate is rumored to be a special school of martial arts in ancient martial arts. I don't know the specific training methods, but their power is very powerful. She paused and continued, the characteristic of Qilongmen's martial arts is that its power continuously increases. Starting from the first Dragon Gate, then the second Dragon Gate, and the third Dragon Gate, if a person is hit continuously, the power of each palm will continue to increase. At the same time, it can also block the flow of energy and blood. The further to the back, the more powerful it will be. The person who is hit slows down or even becomes unable to move. This is an extremely terrifying combo martial art. I never expected that Ansara can still be practiced. Garen frowned slightly. We are both at the same level as a fighter, but he is so much better than me. Fighters are just a general term for some warriors who have reached the limit of human beings. There will naturally be strong and weak among them. This is normal, Selene said matter-of-factly. What are the E-level and D-level classifications now? They are the power levels of thermal weapons. In fact, almost all fighters are D-level, including you. And the higher level is C-level, which is the special single weapon level in today's society, similar to some special gunpowder and powerful weapons made of special materials. These are all fighters cannot resist. Perhaps only a very few fighters can reach this level. Ansara may be one of them. So do you know that people with superpowers exist? Garen asked in a low voice. Superpower? You mean telepathy? Selene was stunned. Have you seen that group of people? Garen nodded. During my wandering years, I have seen them many times. Those people are very mysterious. They have developed many strange abilities through their mind power, and they regard themselves as beings beyond mortals. But in fact they are just pitiful people whose experiments failed. People. Cynical because of misery, Selene whispered.